Well, welcome back to our now 39th of these playlists. We're approaching 40, as we're some of us approaching 60, some of us already there. Yeah, so we've been doing the last few, we skipped one or two, but then we come back. We've been focusing on an artist or group that we like. We did Bob Dylan, and then we did the Beatles, and the other two, Dave and Jose, had picked those, I believe. And then I, my turn of bat, I picked the Rolling Stones. So there's some connection between those three, one way or another. So I'll just jump right into it. Before I actually get to I have the first song. I've been kind of thinking about like the Stones and the Beatles. They were obviously in competition, but in a way they're so different, and trying to how to define that, you know. And I saw this clip with Steve Van Zandt, Little Steven from the E Street Band. Also, if you're a Sopranos fan, he was Silvio. But he was describing when they came along, he was, you know, as an up and coming, starting to be a musician. The Beatles, they were kind of like the first music group, like modern music rock group that he'd heard of. And they were like, just he was blown away by their musicianship, by their writing and all this stuff. And then the Stones come along. He's like, they were more like me, you know, they were rougher, kind of bad boys. It's like I had no hope of the Beatles were unapproachable, but I could do, or at least I thought I could do what the Stones did. So yeah, I'm curious as we go what you guys think of that,
Well,
comparing those two.
let me just say I've been thinking about it as well, and my analogy is if you go with movies is the Beatles are kind of like a Frank Capra movie where it's all nice and low, but the Stones are like Sam Peckinpah, like this is raw, this is essentials. That's how I looked at it, you know. Or if you're, you know, novel, you know, it's like Beatles are like Hemingway, Stones are like Mickey Spillane. You know, it's raw, it's out there. So that's how I looked at it.
I can't come up with a better analogy than that. Yeah, the Stones are just that gritty, edgy, you know, the bad boy kind of thing, versus the clean cut, you know, stuff with the Beatles. Now, obviously, the Beatles changed and grew over time, and really, Rolling Stones did too. I think the thing with this is going to probably be one of my hardest ones to do, because even though I've always appreciated the Stones and love a lot of their music, I did not get into them as much as you, Mike, and Jose did. Didn't have the albums and stuff that you all had, and so my taste and my knowledge of the Stones is probably a lot less, but I have a great appreciation for them, that's for sure.
Yeah. And that begs the question is, and I think we're all kind of the same way, is that they kind of pity. So why did we kind of lean more towards the Beatles eventually? But I guess because as you grow older, you can identify, like Mike said, like you identify with heartbreak or violence or more revolution. You learn, your naivete becomes less, and it becomes more cynical, like the Stones. So yeah, because I thought about that as well. It's like, why did I lean more towards the Beatles? Why did I think they were, you know, the end all be all, even though the Stones have the longevity with them, and really some on par songs with the Beatles.
Yeah, no, it's true. And the Stones, they both kind of played some blues stuff, but Stones really started out as a blues band where they just kind of blossomed. And when I was a kid, blues music really wasn't, I didn't, it wasn't on my radar. But the Beatles, I heard them on the stations my parents listened to. Then you'd hear them on FM radio rock stations. So it was kind of, that was the stuff I heard, and then they had songs that were seemingly kid friendly, like Yellow Submarine, and so I kind of knew that the Beatles, and I'll actually this first song, if you don't mind, I'll go on into it. That was the Stones. I didn't really know the first song I put on here, do 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 do, Heartbreaker. It's Heartbreaker is how I always thought of it, but the background they're doing that do 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 stuff. Anyway, it's off Goat Head Soup, and that's an album I didn't have. My mom did, but that was the first Stones I clearly remember hearing on the radio because it was 75, somewhere in there, maybe a little earlier, but it was getting a lot of airplay. And so that kind of was when they first came on my radar, but it wasn't several years more until I really started getting to know some of the music. So this song, I kind of did a little research on it, things I didn't realize. I love it's a clavinet, is that keyboard sounding thing, which Stevie Wonder used it a lot. It almost sounds like not a clavicle. What was that? Clavichord, harpsichord kind of thing. You guys maybe can think of a clavinet. Anyway, but it's electric, and then it's distorted, and that is Billy Preston, which I was surprised to know. He's a couple of these songs on here. It's Billy Preston, which is cool, and of course Bobby Keys, which is like, was he never on a Stones song? That guy on saxophone. So yeah, there's not much more to say about it. I just that was kind of my really entrance point to them, and it rock. It's a kind of disturbing story, but it rocks. So
I had a feeling you'd start out with something, raucous and upbeat or whatever. This is one of the songs I was familiar with. I will say that you threw some things on here on this playlist that I had never heard. So I spent the last couple of weeks listening over and over again. But this is one that I had because I said I ripped off or took my sister's Goat Head Soup album and then made it part of my collection. So was able to recognize this song right off the bat and knew it as one of their hits, and also from that album. And so I played the crap out of it when I was a teenager. So I knew you'd start out with something like that. It was a good choice to get us in the Rolling Stone mood.
Yeah, it's a great song. I think because you had the album, that was the first time I heard Goat Head Soup because Dave had the album and we'd make mixtapes. I don't think we ever used this song. I think obviously we used Angie or something like that. But obviously we heard this song quite a bit as well, because if you played the album, you're going to hear this song and you'd hear it on the radio. And I think, back to the Beatles Stones thing, this song's about heartbreak, while usually the Beatles are talking about love, and sure, they had their songs about heartbreak and as well, but nothing this raw, like talk about got needle through your all that kind of stuff. So and that's how you kind of get engaged with the Stones, like, they feel what I feel during a heartbreak, instead of the old lovey-dovey heartbreak. This is heartbreak, this is hardcore, especially when you're younger. So just a great, fantastic song. Speaking with my next song, which was Painted Black, this was another album that I borrowed from Mike. He had the 64 through 71 double album, and I was like, Mike, can I buy that? Can I borrow that? And then I made a tape of it. I recorded it just so I could have it. Now, there's a lot of songs to pick off their early stuff for sure. Obviously, I thought about going with Satisfaction because usually that was my first real song that I heard from the Stones that was made an impact, because first it's an Apocalypse Now, but it's also a song that we used to have when we were Boy Scouts. We'd sing it all the time. But Painted Black is a song that I think is actually, and I know I'm going out on a limb, actually is more popular than Satisfaction at this point, simply because it's used so much in so many different shows, in movies. It's in Full Metal Jacket at the end of Stanley Kubrick's. It was the theme song for the Tour of Duty. It was the show about Vietnam, which I used to watch. So I used to listen to quite a bit. And again, it's one of those songs that isn't. It's it's a darker feel to it. It's a darker side, and of course you have the sitar and all that other stuff. But it's one of the and for all you Reds fans, it was Joey Votto's walk-up song for the longest, for at least 10 years. So you kind of identified with, oh yeah, he has Painted Black for whatever reason. So that's one of the reasons I picked it.
Yeah, this I guess I wasn't when I was thinking about this, I wasn't including Heartbreaker in this, but this and the next couple of songs are about, troubled relationships, getting your heart broken, knowing that something's about to happen, as in one of the songs. So I thought that was interesting. This song, yeah, I'm glad that we put on some early stuff. I had so many I wanted to put on, and there's just no way I could get them all. So the more popular ones I kind of tended to push back, or the more well-known ones, just because I really wanted to get some of these others on. But I love this song, and I'm not going to keep doing this, but I will mention. Actually, that's the next song. Brian Jones plays the sitar, which apparently I did do a little reading on this. Apparently, after George Harrison did it on, oh, what was it? Was it Norwegian Wood? One of the
Right.
first songs of the sitar. He had a conversation with George Harrison and picked it up real quick how to play it, so he included it on this. But that guy, he bombed, he fell apart, but right as the Stones were really getting big, drugs and other things, and he didn't get treated the best in the band. There as Jagger and Richards kind of started, teaming up more, but he earned some of that with his bad boy behavior. But he played so many different interesting instruments. Just looking at this one little period there, and this is one, like I said, the sitar. So I love the song.
Yeah, I've always loved Painted Black, and some of some of that stuff in the early, and I tried not to overthink this too much. I'm going to be most of my stuff's greatest hits kind of stuff as well. And so when you played Painted Black, it's just the first song that popped into my head. After that, I was thinking of some of the early ones too, like Get Off My Cloud, and some of those ones, whatever. And then I just thought, yeah, Ruby Tuesday is a great song. Why don't I just we'll go Painted Black and then Ruby Tuesday, and then everyone knows it. We've heard it a lot of times, but it's just one of my favorite classic Rolling Stone songs. And you'll probably hear this central theme as well going throughout. Am I a hard rocker? I can be a headbanger. I can do a lot of that kind of stuff, but man, I like more of the softer stuff, the mid tempo kind of thing, and just a good melody and a good tune. And Ruby Tuesday has that, and it's got a good hook, got a good melody, got a good chorus, and so I said let's just go with the well-known classic.
No, yeah, I thought it was a good follow-up to Painted Black, because on that 60, I keep going back, on that 64 through 71, and I still own that cassette that I taped it on, which has been like 30 years old now, is that you see, I think it's the last song on that side two, but you see the development of the group as their songwriting is changing, and as they're growing as a group. And I thought that was a great, from Painted Black to one of those, like you said, Get Off My Cloud, Satisfaction, Painted Black, to Ruby Tuesday, where it was a little more slow, a little more mellow. Not that they didn't have, Heart of Stone and other songs like that, but you could see the transition and the band growing, and Keith Richards and Mick Jagger's writing. So I thought it was a great great follow up.
Yeah, I've always loved this song. It's such a great song, and just kind of piggybacking on what you said, it's it is such a, they are showing who they're becoming. They really are. It's something obviously it's great that they continued, But if they had stopped at that, I think would have earned their cred as a great band. That is such a just an amazingly well written song. You know, it's sad, of course, but you know. So I kind of went ahead. I kept kind of the trouble relationship, whatever things kind of going south song with. I did Let It Loose off Exile on Main Street. And first, I'll talk about that record. I was into them for a long time, but I didn't actually get into that record until I think after we had made our tapes and gone on separate ways. I was really late to that, like in the late 90s, mid to late 90s. And it has now since become one of my probably top 5 Stones albums. If you want, I'll give you a list. But you know, it's just such it's they were in kind of a rough place at the time. There's a lot of drug use and trouble, and it just everything gels in that record coming out of that experience. It really reflects that. This song, it's Mick is singing about, at least my interpretation, whether it's a one night stand or somebody he's just met, he can see going into it that she's not really going to introduce him to her friends. He's not, you know, it's just not, he's not important to her, and it's going to end. And so his character talks about crying and things like that. I don't know if this is based on anything that actually happened to him. This one also was interesting in the some of the other people on there. Nicky Hopkins, who, if you're familiar with any British, he played with The Who, he played with, you know, the session guy that's in with everybody. He played a piano and mellotron in this. I always love a mellotron. Dr. John was on this song, and Bobby Keys, of course. Then Mick had gone to, I don't think we could ever accuse Mick of being a religious person from what little I know about him, but he had gone to some church related thing, and there was this choir, and he was just so drawn to that music. This is what I read about this. He wanted to have a choir on there, so he had that kind of singing on there. There's another song coming up, obviously, but yeah, one of 2 songs on that album I have on there, and there's a reason for that.
Well, like I said, I don't want to sound like a broken record, but I did not have Exile on Main Street at all. And so when you put this song on, I for the life of me, probably have never heard it, or maybe if I had, I didn't remember it. So for me, it was a new song. It was fresh. I was like, oh. And I think when you actually put it on and I listened to it for the first time, I think I commented in our messenger that, hey, this is a pretty cool song here, you know. So I knew Mike was going to come in with the ones that I wasn't familiar with, and again, this was a great example. I can't say much more about it other than I really liked it.
Yeah, I did own Exile on Main Street, and I thought it was a great album. Now, I didn't hold it as a high in esteem. That's an album you really got to listen to a bunch of times. And of course, it was done. There's a documentary. You know, I love watching my Stones documentaries, and there's at least 5 or 6 of them. And there's one on this and the subsequent tour that they did, and they went down to Muscle Shoals. They wanted to capture that feeling of, let's just go raw, let's just do our thing, and like Mike said, catch some of that Southern feeling, some of that whatever's going on here. So this song, not my favorite song. You know, you have Rip This Joint, you've got Loving Cup, you've got all these, you know, Sweet Virginia, but it is a great song. It was used in, and I told Mike this when he got it. It was in The Departed. Martin Scorsese used it, and obviously Martin Scorsese knows a little bit about the Stones. So, but I thought it was a great choice. You know, and it's a song that, like you said, it's one of those that it didn't grab me initially like Rip This Joint or songs like that, or Sweet Virginia or Loving Cup, but it's one of those songs that in context with the whole album, it's fantastic. Now I'll throw my Fish side bet. They're the one, they covered this album as one of their Halloweens, and it is just, you know, when you listen to it, it's just amazing. So and Shine a Light on it, you know, you have all those songs on there that are just, it's just a chock full of great songs that, you know, in that era of, and we'll get to them eventually, the other out, well, I went with can you hear me knocking? I mean, when you had the back-to-back Sticky Fingers, Let It Bleed, you know, and we'll get into those, and I picked Can't You Hear Me Knocking. it's a rocking song. It wasn't initially going to be that long, supposed to be that long. They sang it and then they started jamming, and they're like, man, we like that jamming. And so they kept it. They decided to keep it. And Bobby Keys, which we can talk about endlessly. Another documentary on Bobby Keys, which is key to watch, no pun intended. But you know, you had those, and I think after those two, then they do Exile. You know, it's just amazing how much music they were really putting together at that time.
Oh yeah, yeah, the extended jam. I love that. I didn't think of this before, but listening to it a few times, it kind of reminds me a little bit of Traffic. I can't tell you what it is about it, but it's just kind of that. And the jam, I read that too. It's just like to do something just unplanned and then just it's good enough to keep it on record is pretty cool. I mentioned this is maybe my favorite Stones album. Again, there's like 5 there. And so the other thing when I was in high school, we were playing a lot. I went to see the Stones with my friends. I'll get into that later, but we were talking about songs we liked, and none of us really knew what the name of the song was because you can't really tell when they're saying, "Can you hear me?" I almost saying it sounds like they're saying something like
Newbie
newbie.
knocking. Newbie.
Yeah.
My brother used to say that all the time when we first heard it. It's like, what did they say? Newbie knock. What's that mean?
And to this day, I hear that. So yeah, thanks for putting that on. And we'll get on to Let It Bleed again, but Sticky Fingers, Let It Bleed, Some Girls. Have I done? Is that 3? What was it? Just Exile on Main Street, and I think I'm blanking out. But those are at the top of my list. So anyway, enough about me.
Is my turn? Oh, okay. Is it my turn?
Yeah, it's your
Yes.
turn.
Did you start talking? So did you start talking about Can't You Hear Me Knocking yet?
You haven't talked about it, but yeah, we just
Oh,
talked
I
about
have,
it.
okay.
Thanks
So-
for
so-
listening, Dave.
I have been listening. I've been paying attention. So I'm just trying to remember if I think I had this album.
I think we did. I think it was around. Either you did
If
or
I
I
didn't,
did.
I mean, I probably didn't play it that much, or every time I put it on, I probably wanted to hear Wild Horses and Dead Flowers or something. But but yeah, it's a good album. I like this song. I didn't remember this. Another one where if I did own the album, I don't remember the song. So having Let It Loose and then Can't You Hear Me Knocking, both those. As I played this the last couple of weeks, I had to listen over and over again to these songs that I wasn't that familiar with, and really just, I don't know, just get back to an appreciation for who the Stones were and their musicianship, and just all of that. You know, you start listening really deeply to the guitar riffs and all of it, and you start really realizing just how freaking talented they were. You know, I mean, Keith Richards and all of them really. But I think I undervalued and underappreciated Keith Richards, and I know that sounds kind of weird, right? But because I just wasn't that into the Stones for all those years. But uh, he's amazing when you look at the whole body of work of all the Rolling Stone stuff. He is the heartbeat of what the main writer of these songs. Yeah, Mick Jagger's there and they're singing all the other things going on, but it's Keith Richards that's a driving force on that.
I think the next one's yours too.
Okay, so then again, I'm going with the classics and stuff. So probably one of the most famous songs of the Rolling Stones, and probably my favorite Rolling Stones song for whatever reason is You Can't Always Get What You Want. And so I put that on. You know, I love the whole song. I love how, for me, songs that I like a lot are the ones that maybe start out slow. They got an acoustic thing to it. You kind of build on it, and then the next verse you get a little bit of an upbeat thing to it, and then the next verse you're letting it loose, and and it just builds and builds and builds, and that's what this song does for me. And then it brings it back down a little bit towards the end, but my favorite part, obviously, and people said this, but when that French horn comes in and breaks into that, I don't know. To me, that is beauty, and then he comes in with the voice and everything else, and whatnot. So this is just one of my favorite songs. I've always loved it. Had to put it on.
Oh yeah, it's a classic Stone song, and what really guys is not only the French horns, but the women singers at the beginning always grab you like, oh wait, oh this is the Stone song. You knew immediately what that song was, and it's kind of doing my little research. It's kind of like a protest song, and it's not really a protest song, but it is a protest song. And there's dissension, and Leave It to the Stones, that they had other ones that were more not as subtle, but because it sounds like such a beautiful song. It's like they're not singing about love, they're singing about protest and not getting what they want, and people protesting the government and that kind of thing. So I always just thought it was a fantastic song, like you said. uh Let It Bleed and Sticky Fingers, those albums back to back. And I'm sure we'll talk about at some point about, and he shouldn't never be slighted, is, they went from Brian Jones to Mick Taylor, who was really such a great slide guitarist. Now, Dave makes a great point that Keith Richards with his rhythm guitar really kind of stays it together, along with obviously they had the great rhythm section with Bill Wyman and Charlie Watts, and we'll talk about the drumming of Charlie Watts. I think Mike said this in our Beatles one, like Ringo Starr was to the Beatles, Charlie Watts was to the. Didn't need to be fancy, but he was always accentuating what was good and keeping a great beat. So again, you can't say a lot about this song that hasn't been said.
Yeah, I'd have to say that what you just said right there, it's like it's a very well-known song for a good reason. It's a epic song, really. It's a longer one. But and the French horn, absolutely. That's where I kind of it gets my attention. And then of course the choir. Um, and there's a part where they're just like holding the note. I mean, I think they have to take a breath, but it's kind of like the bass that all the music's playing around. And I'm sure they intended that to be that way, but it's such a great song. I follow that with I want to do something newer. And by new, I mean something in the mid 90s, early mid 90s. Well, I guess it'd been about 96. I don't have the date, but Out of Tears off Voodoo Lounge. And okay, yeah, you talk about a deep track. Sure, this is probably not well known. I know they did play it on the radio some. I saw this tour. This is the second time I saw them with my mom, actually. I'll get into that later. But for some reason, there was just something about this song that really got my attention, the piano. And then I loved the guitar solo. It just, it's subtle. It's not, it's not, he's not shredding it, but it's just, I think it really fits the space. Um, I don't know much else about the song other than that, but it's just one that always kind of got my attention. And I've forgotten about it because I haven't listened to anything off this record in a long time. So
Well, it's right in the middle of the playlist, or pretty close to the middle of the playlist. And again, it wasn't one that I knew at all. And I kind of have to say that I think this is probably one of my top two or three favorite songs on this playlist, and probably because it's, again, I like that the slower beat of the Rolling Stones. I like when Mick gets into that groove of his. Um, and again, it's just a well crafted, well constructed song. And I found myself going back to it over and over again on the playlist, or when it came up on the playlist, I said, oh, there's that song again. I like this one. So thanks, Mike, for putting that one on, because again, I think it was one of my top two or three favorite songs on the playlist.
Yeah, I'll agree that hardly ever heard this song, if at all. I didn't own that album for sure. Voodoo Lounge. I obviously had probably heard it here or there, and I probably had heard it, but didn't remember it. It didn't stick out for me. But like Dave said, when you get songs like these, it's like listening to a new Rolling Stones. Like, how did I miss that? And it just goes to show you their versatility. And like you said, especially the guitar work and we'll talk about Ronnie Woods, going into my next song. But it just goes to show you that they were really at some point you were all in with the Stones no matter what album they put out. Now granted, am I buying the last 5 Rolling Stones albums? Well, maybe not the last 5, the last 3, probably not. But you listen and you still realize, man, they still got it. And this is what, 90s? They're already 30 years into their career and they're still putting out quality work. And then as we find out, even in their last album, 40 years, they're 50 years, they're putting out solid music. 60 years, they could still do it. So a great, fantastic song. And like I said, the guitar work, and that leads me to Hot Stuff. Now, I will say, this is definitely the Black and Blue album is a transition. This is when Ronnie Woods joins the band and they start going a little more disco-y, a little more, funky, trying to get in with that late 70s, early 80s, disco sound. And it's not the greatest, but I love the song. Now, let me just say before I talk about Ronnie Woods, who I think on the Black and Blue album is great. He doesn't play on this song. It's actually Harvey Mandel who was up. They thought he might join the band, but he didn't make the cut. In fact, Ronnie Woods made it. So, but if you listen to the Black and Blue album, his guitar work is so different and distinct than from what Mick Taylor was doing, who was more blues, more slide, that it showed that this was a transition for him and which way they were going to go, and set a tone for the rest of some of what was to come, as we'll see in a second. But the only reason I wasn't going to pick this song because it is on Sucking in the 70s as well, and I do kind of like it as a guilty pleasure. But someone gave me a bootleg of a 1976 tour of the Stones, and there's another song on there called Hey Negrita, and it just has such a great guitar work that I should have put that one on, but I went with Hot Stuff. It's a little more well known, so that was one of the reasons I picked it.
Yeah, funky disco Stones. And they had some other coming in the future. They had some other stuff that touched on disco, but many bands did. I'm not criticizing it. Not all of it anyway. And the other thing, it's like I'm not sure, but do you think Mick likes that hot stuff? Seems like he says, I like that hot. Is that what he says? It's like,
he was into that. He was into the Studio 54 scene. He was
Oh,
into
yeah.
that scene, right? So he wanted to write songs like this. I mean, we get Emotional Rescue, that album and those songs. There's that period of them doing that disco-y. This ain't the Let It Bleed years anymore. This ain't
Oh,
the
yeah.
Taylor years anymore. This is something completely different. So
Yeah, and I was just teasing with that because he says he makes it very clear many times that he does indeed like the hot stuff. So.
well,
But I'm not making fun of you. It's a fun song. It's one I did not know, and probably just because I never bought that record, and I think it's because of one song on there. Is it "Fool to Cry"? Daddy, you're a fool to cry. I don't know. That song never really did it for me. So, but it's not fair because I'm sure there's some other great stuff on there.
there really is.
Yeah, that's another one that again I wasn't familiar with it, but it was surprising. Like I said, I know it was more of just an appreciation for all the different types. I'm glad that you didn't stick with just one, one type of thing. Let's just go with the rock, or let's go with this, kind of like what I do when I just go with the greatest hits kind of stuff. So it was good that you guys put some variety and stuff on the playlist. But yeah, I wasn't familiar with it, and the whole funky disco kind of era, and I had a couple of songs that I was going to maybe put on with that went into the punkish 80s kind of stuff, but you guys kind of beat me to some of that. And I think in a little while we'll talk about Shattered and stuff, but I was thinking that same thing with Emotional Rescue or Beast of Burden, those kind of things. Those were popular songs that I had on my list of, oh, maybe I'll throw one of those on, but didn't really get around to it on this playlist because I was too busy just picking the songs that I just really liked or the ones that were the most popular. And the next one was one that that I just always loved. And again, I love that the piano kind of stuff, and I love that the mid tempo type of of a song that they get into, and I put on "Waiting on a Friend," and I think it might have even been in this was probably in the MTV era as well, where I probably saw the video of it a lot, like a lot, like too many times a lot. That's probably why it's embedded in me so much. But just I just love the yeah, I think I even remember, he's there on the stoop and everything, and waiting for his buddies, and they come and, hey, I'm just waiting on a friend, and I just thought it was such a cool song back then. And just it's always just been one of my favorite Rolling Stones songs. So I had to find a place to put it on.
Well, if we could all, and I remember when this album came out, Tattoo You, it was kind of like this resurgence of the Stones. They had come out with those other kind of disco, and people are like, do the Stones really have it? And then all of a sudden, Start Me Up came out, and everyone like, oh, they're back. Go ahead. Dave, do you want to say something?
I was gonna say, "Stop me up." I was gonna do
But
the Mick Jagger lips or whatever.
if you remember that thing was such a resurgence and so popular back then. And I also remember when they were about to tour that thing, because I was a junior in high school, and next to me there was a student who was older, this female student who was older than me. But she had a subscription to Rolling Stone, and she would bring it in. So of course, when she brought it in, she'd let me read it, and nothing but stories about the Rolling Stones and their tours coming up. And of course, I didn't do too well in chemistry, but I knew a lot about the Rolling Stones tour. And like Dave said, this out first it was "Start Me Up," then they had a couple other hits, and then "Waiting for a Friend," because of the video, became really popular. So I just remember this whole resurgence of the Stones.
Yeah, this kind of I got my attention back on the Stones. This one too. I bought the record right after it came out. I liked all the songs on it. I know Pete Townsend plays on one of the songs, and it's a great album. This is a really cool song. It's like it has the sax, and it has all the different. It's just kind of a different sound if you listen to the rest of the record. It slows it down a bit. And yeah, this is when I saw him. I saw him this tour, the Cotton Bowl, Halloween. They played two shows, Halloween 1981, and I will keep this very brief, but just a few recollections from that show. I was also in junior high school. We went with two of my friends, and we spent the night outside the Cotton Bowl so we could get up close to the stage. And it was a surreal night. I don't think I don't know how my mom agreed to let me go spend the night out by the Cotton Bowl, but it was just so weird. Just all the freaks in because the Rolling Stones fans, there's some interesting ones, and then a Christian, like what do you call it, like acting group came and did these plays about damnation, and would come around and try to warn us about what's about to happen and all this stuff. And it was very entertaining. And then the show, of course, was great, except it just started pouring rain, flooding rain. And the reason I know this is because when we left, and they kept playing, that was, I think, when I was really sold on the Stones. There's a photo that was in the paper that I think the Times Herald, which no longer exists, of Mick Jagger like out on the stage, just drenched and standing there singing. They did not cut the show short. They just kept going. And going back to our cars, we walked through, it was at least knee deep water. It was just like flooding everywhere. So that was a great show. And just the last couple of points, I mentioned what did I put the song from Voodoo Lounge. The second time I saw him with my mom, and it poured during that show too. And it was same deal. They were out there. It was a blast. And then I saw him one time at Zilker, which weather was fine. Yeah. You guys have a chance to see him?
No,
I never
and
saw
I had
the
several
Simpsons.
chances. I could have saw him in Ohio the last time they were, and I didn't. So I regret it.
Yeah, I passed up the last chance. They played at Circuit of the Americas, and I didn't go. If they come through again, I might try to catch them though.
Yeah.
Yeah, this was one of the regrets I had, or there were a couple of them there, and I can't name them all, but there were probably 4 or 5 groups where Jose either said, "Hey, we should go to this one," tried to get me to go to a show or whatever. And at the time, it was either that I'd already been going to a lot of them, or I didn't have another $12.50 back then to spring for another ticket or whatever. And so I passed on a lot of shows, and I look back and I go, in fact, I thought this was maybe one of the ones where you had gone, I hadn't. Um, but there were other ones like that where Jose tried to get me to go to a show, and I passed on it. And so now to this day, I'm like, yep, never saw them, but Jose gave me a chance, and I blew it.
Well, and I nearly neglected to go into my next song. Um, uh, I'll keep it very brief. Happy. I wanted to put it's off Exile on Main Street. Wanted to put one Keith Richards song on there, and this is one I'd heard from back in the day. And I think all 3 shows I saw he played. He gets like 1 or 2 token songs, at least later, from the '70s on and on each album. And I think this is probably my favorite. Although it's always nice, to have that kind of change, to hear it's very simple. I need it. Love to keep me happy. So that's why I put it on.
Well, yeah, and again, this is another one that I wasn't familiar with, and can't say a whole lot about it. It just kind of seemed to flow good on the playlist after waiting on a friend, and again, it was just can't say anything bad about the songs or anything. Um, yeah, I don't have much to say about this one. It made me happy.
Now another gem off Exile, of course, and again, it's a double album, so you get a lot of music. And if you ever get I bought the CD, the deluxe edition, and you even get more songs off of that. But it's a, like you said, a Keith Richards. But you realize at some point that Keith Richards and Mick Jagger needed each other, and they were a perfect blend. Because if you ever listen, sure, there's some Mick Jagger solos. They have some decent songs, and then you have Keith Richards singing, and you're like, man, if someone else sang that song, wouldn't that be better? And so it just goes to show you that these guys were, they might not have gotten along all the time, and they weren't the bestest of buddies, but man, as a musical, as a partnership in music, they were fit for a perfect fit, and this kind of proves it. And yeah, you know, it's just Off Exile on Main Street, which again is one of those albums that it's one of the best. Like Mike said, it's one of my top 5 favorites as well. So going to that, one of my all-time other is Some Girls, which again, it's that funky. I like that punky kind of Stone sound. Of course, you could put Some Girls, but we weren't going to put Some Girls on there, even though it has its moments. And but I always love Shattered as well because Some Girls is good because it has a lot of great lyrics, and Shattered is one of them. And obviously, it's about New York, and we all remember New York. If you don't remember New York in the late '70s, it was kind of a cesspool, and a lot of stuff going on there. And kind of Mick Jagger captures the essence of it. And of course, he has that classic line, "Bite the Big Apple, don't mind the maggots," which has been used before by other people. People always refer to it. It's just it's a lyric that you don't forget. And Shattered is one of those songs that when it comes on, that song. It's just one of those songs that really stands out for me. So
Yeah, this is another one. My mom had this on I think 8-track, and it's like every time I say most of her stuff was on 8-track. Anyway, so I got to hear a lot of this, and this song continued to be one of my favorites going into my high school years. And it's like basically it's just a long. There's not a chorus really, right? There's a little guitar bridge, but it's just Mick going on this kind of rant basically. And I've heard it so much that I actually have, let's see, yeah, I actually have part of it memorized. So let me see. Don't you know the crime rate's going up, 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 up? To live in this town, you must be tough, 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 tough. You got rats on the west side, bed bugs on town. Well, anyway, uptown. What a mess this town's been Shattered. I've been battered. My brain's, I got it wrong. Anyway, splutter all over Manhattan. Anyway,
I
see, I
can't
got
give
it
it
wrong
away
already,
on
but
Seventh
Pretty
Avenue.
good. That's pretty good, Mike.
I
oh,
can't.
there's
give-
more. Yeah, I can't get on. What is that on? The Seventh Avenue.
Yeah, I can't give it away on Seventh Avenue. This hasn't been shattered. Yeah. this
Yeah, there you
hasn't
go. I
been-
left that out. But if we weren't doing this on camera, I could probably do the whole song for you.
Nah.
I like this song, and again, it's not an album I had or anything like that, but I've always known the song, and it gets that whole, you know, punky kind of vibe, whatever, with it, you know. And yeah, as you just were repeating those lyrics, Mike, I was even thinking it had a little bit of pre-rap and stuff to it, right? There's a little bit of that, you know, funk to it, and it's mesmerizing. It really is. It's like you said, it's doing the same thing over and over again, right? But it's it's that hook that they have with it. What are they? What is it? What they Shadoobie? What is it? I don't know.
Doobie.
Shadoobie? Yeah.
Doobie.
Shattered, shattered.
Shadoobie, you know, and it just sticks in your head. Once you hear the song, it's like it's with you all day. You know, you'll be doing Shattered all day after you hear this one. And so yeah, good choice, Jose. It was one that I was familiar with, and love the track. So then it was my turn to come in with something, and this is the one time on the playlist where I didn't just go off the greatest hits or the songs that I knew. Over the last couple 3 weeks, when we said, "Hey, let's do some Stones" kind of thing, I started getting on the Apple Music and checking out a lot of their songs, trying to see if I could find a song to maybe surprise Jose and Mike with, right? Something off a newer album in the 2015 range or something that they didn't know about. And I came across this one album, and there's actually about, I don't know, probably 3 or 4 songs off this album that I was like, okay, am I going to play this song? Am I going to play this song? I don't know. But as I mentioned, I like the slow Mick Jagger love thing. We talked about before about I was maybe going to put on the girl with faraway eyes, you know, something like that, because I like that whole vibe that he does. And then I came across this song "Streets of Love," and it's just a real slow tempo kind of thing with Mick Jagger. And so I said, okay, I'll pick this song then off that album. Again, I had never knew of it, but I played it 3 or 4 times. I listened to it and I said, yeah, this is a cool song. So I'm going to throw it out there. Hopefully Jose and Mike like it, or maybe you've heard it before. Maybe it was the, you know, the one track on that album or something that was played. I don't know, but anyway, I thought I'd put it on, and I kind of digged it.
Let's see, oh, no, I'm last, I think.
Oh, sorry about that.
Good.
Yeah, no, you did surprise me with this one because I hadn't heard it. And I was like you know, you try to look for songs that were later ones. Like I listened to their last album. There was a couple of songs there that I thought I might play, but nothing really grabbed me. So I'm kind of glad that you grabbed one of these songs in their later years where, yeah, it's a nice little song. You know, again, I go back to, they still have it. How, you know, a lot of times the groups don't have it, or let's face it, groups just don't last this long. You know, I would, and I don't want to begrudge the Who, but the Who's later songs, you know, don't grab the attention that these songs. You hate to say that, but it's true. You know, this song is fantastic. You know, it's a little gem there, like you said, that comes out of nowhere, but it's in the classic style of, yeah, this is a Stone song. This is Mick Jagger doing his thing. And it's really kind of a touching song. I love listening to it.
It is touching, and I love the arrangement. I'm sure I heard it. I don't know if the Zilker show maybe was this tour, but I definitely heard it at least live. But you know, it reminds me, it's a similar vein to the I'm Out of Tears. Kind of the same thing I like about that song. I like about this. Mick being you know, the more genteel, not genteel, but you know, sensitive Mick, you know, and yeah, it's a great song.
Before you get into your next one, so I looked at, so it's from 2005, And again, yeah, I wasn't familiar with it, but if you get a chance to go to the name of the album, I think is A Bigger Bang. If you get a chance to go and check out that thing, there's a couple songs. Rain Fall Down was way cool, and another one called Biggest Mistake that I was going to put on, kind of a mid-tempo rocker. Check them out. This is a great album. I mean, whatever we call them in 2005, a CD or whatever. But this whole thing was really, it blew me away that in 2005 they're putting out this this type of music.
And that was 20 years ago.
I know, right?
I know. Well, you might have been better given what came next, putting out a mid-tempo rocker instead of this gentle Mick Jagger. Okay, this is the last round of songs, and I wanted to get this song on there somewhere, and was running out of songs, so I put it on. It's Monkey Man from Let It Bleed. It was never a hit, but it was on, among other things, it was in Goodfellas, and something else I can't think of. But it's in the same album. You've got You Can't Always Get What You Want, Let It Bleed. I'm blanking out, but there were at least a couple more songs that got a lot of airplay and are well known. This one, for some reason, I don't know what it is about the song. It's an odd song, but they're really rocking on this, and they're bringing in the slide guitar and Mick's acting crazy. And I believe it's about drug addiction. I may be wrong, but it kind of sounds like it. And so it was off that. It was the one early on. It was like one of the Stone songs that was like was beyond just like, oh, okay, that's cool. It was like when my mom had the 8-track of this, I would listen to that over and over, something about it. So there you go. I had to get it on.
It's a cool song, but yeah, you're right. It's the lyrics are pretty trippy for sure, and hit on to being friends with junkies and all kinds of stuff like
That's
that.
not really true.
Yeah, right.
Well, unless you include other band members.
I'm a sack of broken eggs. I always have an unmade bed, don't you? I mean, I hope we're all not too messianic or a trifle too satanic, which we'll get into at the last song, right? I'm just a monkey. I would love to play the blues. Well, I'm just a monkey man, and glad you're a monkey woman, and all that kind of stuff. This is a pretty cool song.
Oh, love the song. I always love the song off this album. Obviously, it's a rockin' song. I love my rockin' songs, and this is one of them. And I thought it was the best song on the album, actually. So take that for what it was. And Let It Bleed, of course, is a classic. And of course, True to Fish, they were at a festival. They covered this song, and you're just like, oh my God, they even know the Monkey Man. It's such a great song. Why would they not cover that? Why aren't more groups covering Monkey Man? So, and like you said, Mike, it's in a lot of. I think Scorsese used it in two movies. He loves his Stones, so just a fantastic song. I kind of dialed it back a little. I went with Mixed Emotions off of Steel Wheels only because I own that CD and played it a lot. And I always thought this song was great. And they had a little video, button your coat, but he always did that little dance for some reason. But I also love the song itself and how it played. And I love that Steel Wheels album for some reason. It was just one of those things that just caught me at the right time. How we always talk about you have a certain album for the summer, and this happened to be that one. So I used to listen to this one quite a bit. So that's one of the reasons. And to show again, they were still, and this album is what 25, 30 years old, which is crazy.
Yeah.
It just doesn't seem like that. It just shows how the time flies. So, and I always thought it was just a nice song with some great lyrics. Mixed emotions. We all had that. So that's one of the reasons I picked it.
Yeah, I remember this one got some airplay, and I don't think I ever had the cassette or CD of it. But I knew it well. And for some reason, I feel like I can hear, like in the lyrics and arrangement, I can hear more Keith Richards in this. I can picture him singing this, I guess. But it's it's just my thought. But it's a great song. There's not much more I can add to it. I appreciate you putting it on there.
Yeah, this is a good. I liked it because it was a song that I remembered, but not because I had the album or anything. Like you said, it got some airplay, probably a video kind of thing, and it was probably the one song where I went, oh yeah, I know that one. I know that one. And so when it started up, I'm like, yeah, button your lip, you know, yeah. So it's always been one that I've liked. I can't say much more about it, but as I started scrolling through and I was looking at the lyrics and the songs that we put on the playlist, I wanted to ask a question about this because we mentioned Keith Richards, we mentioned Mick Jagger and their songwriting duo and how they fed off each other. Almost every one of these songs it says Keith Richards, Mick Jagger. Did they have many other songs that where everyone collaborated on? Because like even with the Beatles and even with the other ones, you would have other ones. Well, oh, they're George Harrison. Oh, so songwriting credits that they all collaborated a little bit, and they would give them songwriting credit, right, for something on that. Like, well, yeah, even if you're the drummer and you did something or you added some lyric to it, then they gave you some credit, but seems like almost is most of the Rolling Stones just all Jagger and Richards, and that's it, or it
I
just
think, I think later, that was kind of how they credited. I know, like, when they still had Brian Jones, that was kind of one of the things that pushed him out because he did contribute things and other people did as well. But it would get at least one of the songs that he said he definitely and contributed a lot to. It was Mick and Keith. And so, yeah, I think that I don't know if that's an ego thing, if they really did the lion's share and just thought it was the right thing to do. But I'm sure, like any band, everybody throws their stuff in
Yeah,
too.
I think it was established with the Beatles, Lennon, McCartney, and they kind of followed that same kind of pattern. And before anyone really kind of thing, and I think it's like Mike said, Brian Jones is like, hey, wait a minute, I'm contributing a lot. But of course, you got more money if you were the writers. And so I think because they had Lennon McCartney, they thought, oh, Jagger Richards, that's how we should do it. And it was kind of established, even prior to people going, hey, wait a minute. Hey, I've contributed. Like, I have other groups that'll say the entire group, so they can get some royalties out of it. But yeah, I think it was just established early. It did cause some rifts in the band and
you
even in
know
their own songs.
it's one thing to say the collaboration and you could see the whole band getting some credit or whatever. If you've looked lately, if you look at like the Grammy Award winners or whatever, and you say, hey, who do they give? Who wrote the song and who do they give credit for? And it's like this list of like 10 or 12 people, right? Or 5 or 6 people with in these credits anymore, like who the person who engineered it and produced it and put the sound together, and they're all getting like credit for this song, as opposed to, like you said, Lennon, McCartney, or Richards and Jagger. It's just not like that anymore. It's not a single person or even a couple of people that get the credit. It's a conglomeration of people.
Well, yeah, it's all about the royalties and the money. And then I guess the most prime example is the band, right? Robbie Robertson supposedly wrote all the songs, but the rest of the members contributed a lot. And that's what caused the huge rift in that band is they didn't talk to Robbie Robertson for years because he refused to share any of the royalties with them because his name was on it. Even though we all know a lot of those songs were collaborations, they put them all together. Levon Helms held such a grudge against Robbie because Robbie Robertson's like, no, I'm because his name was on it, so he was getting the bulk share of the money. And so, in the early days, I think that's just how it was. They put someone's name on it. But like you said, now, Dave, everyone wants a little piece of the pie, and deservedly so. It's like, let's face it, no one writes Monkey Man, and you don't get the contributions from Charlie Watts or Bill Wyman going, hey, we should do this. Hey, why don't we put this in? Hey, let me put this beat down. So yeah, I think it was just something that was established early until they realized, hey, wait a minute, you're getting all this money and I'm getting what? Nothing. So
Well, and then I had the opportunity to close the playlist, and I had to come back with one of my favorite songs. sympathy for the devil. Now you might think, well, okay, so I gotta talk a little bit about this because I've got some Christian values here. I've been raised in the church and doing that kind of stuff. And so probably years ago when this was all out or whatever, I probably would have went, they're talking about Satan, and I would have thought, no, we're not going to give sympathy to the devil. Come on, we got to, he's the evil one. He's the opposite. He's the antithesis of good and all that. But it's not really like that. I mean, it's really the song when you actually listen to it, you listen to the lyrics, all the things associated with it. It's like, he's given a little bit of like, hey, you got to give some credit to the devil. He's been there. He's been around since the beginning. He's influencing you. He's influencing me. He's influencing a lot of people, right? And so it's there's a lot of truth to the song as well. And I don't see it as an anti-Christ kind of song, really. I think it's more of a just acknowledging that, yeah, the devil's out there and he's been there from the beginning of time, and continues to influence man in such a way that he makes wars and assassinations and all of that. And so wake up, recognize it. He's there, Anyway, and it's a cool song. I just like the way how it builds and the just the whole thing. It's just a great song. So I'm not gonna apologize for it.
Mike, you want to talk about it?
Oh, sure. Well, first off, who doesn't know this song? I mean, like, besides Satisfaction, it's like it's such a well-known song, and I think there's a certain mythology, if that's the right word, connecting them to darker things, Satan or whatever. They had another record with Satanic Majesty's Request and stuff here and there. I think there's song Dancing with Mr. D. I don't know if that's anyway. So this is kind of one of the things that did that. But I agree with you, that it's not he's not portrayed as a sympathetic character necessarily in the song. He's a list of all the bad things. Of course, he says, after all, it's you and me, responsible for this stuff too. But anyway, the other thing I just want to add real quick, I did do a little bit of reading on this one, and the idea for the song was inspired by a couple of things, but one was this book, Master and Margarita, written by a Russian writer who was born in Kiev, but it was under the time of Stalin, so many of his books, including this one, were kind of kept in a drawer till many, many decades later. And in that story, the devil, Satan, whatever, under the name of this guy, Mr. Woland, comes to Moscow and starts meting out his type of justice against bureaucrats and corruption and all that. And it was clearly a critique of the Soviet system, particularly under Stalin. That doesn't have much to do with the song, but I just thought it was an interesting note. And it's one of my, it's a book I read a couple of times now. So Marianne Faithful said she gave that book to Mick. So
I'll play devil's advocate on this song. First of all, let me, the pun intended. First of all, it's a great song, and the guitar lick in that thing is just fantastic. I mean, it's one of the greatest songs they've probably ever done. Now, having said that, if you really delve into the lyrics, like you said, who killed the Kennedys after all? Was it you and me? No, it was a thing, so to blame the devil on certain things or to blame people on, come on, it's a little disingenuous in the sense, or every cop's a criminal. No, not every cop's a criminal. Usually 99% of them are pretty good, but it sounds like a great lyric, and it's a great sounding lyric. And it alludes to the fact that, oh yeah, every cop's a criminal, and no, and to blame, oh, so Satan was to blame about, see, and it's your perspective on what side you're on. The independence of India, we're killing people in Bombay. Well, are you the devil or are you a freedom fighter? You know, you have to look at it on both sides. You know, is the devil doing this, or is God on your side? You know, it's giving this one perspective.
Exactly.
Let's just blame the devil on it. Well, God has been blamed for killing a lot more people than the devil as far as the Crusades go, and things like that. So again, I don't want to make light of it. I don't want to get too deep into the weeds on what it really means and what it doesn't mean. It's a great song and it's fun lyrics. But if you want to, you don't want to take that overly serious. That okay, it's the devil. Oh, the devil. I'm here to influence stuff. Well, I don't think those people thought that the things that they were doing in that aspect of it. Was it the devil that made Lee Harvey Oswald kill JFK? Oh, no, wait a minute. It was you and me. Or was it just you? No, it wasn't just you and me. Yeah, people didn't like JFK. People liked JFK, but was it you and me? So, you know, again, it's a song. And that's what it is. And I, again, being just the devil, I love the song, and I think it's a great way to end the song. And every Stones playlist should have "Sympathy for the Devil" because it does make you think about that stuff. And they did provoke thought about it because if you look at it on the surface, he's trying to say, "Well, I'm the devil, and I'm always around, and I'm always going to tempt you," to a certain aspect of it. But at the same time, you know, sorry for
Well,
getting too deep there.
Yeah.
I will. Can I play devil's advocate? Devil's advocate.
Sure.
The you and me part. That's really what I like to focus on because I don't think he's saying, yeah, Lee Harvey Oswald or whoever. Um, Most likely Lee Harvey Oswald did it. Yeah, but it's like I think what he's saying is people did it. It's like we are responsible. Not all of us in any given thing, but you
But
know,
how are we responsible?
because we're killing each other.
Oh, but this is referring not to killing each other. This is killing to JFK. This isn't
Well, yeah, but that's,
killing
I mean, but all these, put it all together. It's
right.
like
Okay, so
somebody's killing the people in Bombay, somebody killed the czar's family. It's
right,
like
but is
he
that
wasn't doing it. It wasn't doing it. We are
right?
responsible as a species
We,
for killing each other.
we have free agency, we have moral agency. I don't think it's rare that somebody go. I mean, you do have like Charles Manson, and you have some of the people where go, hey, I am into satanic kind of things and that kind of thing. But most of this is probably not somebody going, oh yeah, the devil made me do it. That's why I did it. It's just in society and how they live their lives. That's where they get to the you and me. That maybe we didn't catch the fact that these people spin out of control, that they have mental illness, that they, whatever, and then they end up committing crimes. But it's not always, like I said, you can't pin it on the devil on
Right.
that.
Well, it's the old adage: do guns kill people? Do people kill people?
Mhm.
Well, it takes intent, but you have the tool. And if you take the tool away, then I'm not a big gun guy, but somebody could use a crowbar. I mean, it's like if somebody's going to kill somebody, they'll find a way.
I think the key
Right.
is like you said, it's like it's a great song, and I wanted to put it, we
Yeah.
tend to overthink a lot of times, but no, it's just yeah, I love the guitar in it, and it's just yeah, it's a catchy tune, and it needed to be on the playlist, so I wasn't going to end the playlist without putting it on. Um, yeah.
We had talked about, well, we didn't talk about, I was kind of hoping, well, maybe we'll go a couple extra. And if we had, the next song I was going to follow with was Saint of Me. Was You'll Never Make a Saint of Me, Make Us Singing. I thought that would follow well after Sympathy for the
Well,
Devil.
and if we wanted to go down the path of let's pick all the Stone songs that are really bad. There's a lot of other ones that have been blacklisted now and canceled,
Oh, yeah.
and we can't put on. And even Mick Jagger has said in interviews, he's like, oh no, I will never go there again. And I can't believe, in a way, I mean, it was the times and everything, but yeah, he's not proud of some of the lyrics and the songs that he put out back in the day. He realizes it will not go over well today.
Oh,
And
yeah. No,
Mm.
there's a lot of songs that could have been on there. We didn't use "Gimme Shelter." you know, Shine a Light, obviously, She's a Rainbow, even if you want to use that, we even skip that whole, people usually skip that whole album, but, you know, so yeah, I mean, we're never going to cover all of them. Like Dave said, there's some really stinkers out there. And I think that also leads back to what differentiates, you don't think as many times as Beatles stinkers, even though they're out there, you know, but Stone songs. I mean, if you've ever listened to Beggar's Banquet, name me 5 songs off Beggar's Banquet. Okay, there's Sympathy. And then there's what? You know, so it's one of the things that people love the Stones, and that what I think when they hit, they hit home runs, and then when they struck out, they're like a power hitter. You either strike out or you hit. Not to say that there's some middle songs that people love and people don't love.
Yeah, you know, when you listen to some of these songs, like, wow, or like Shattered, where did that come from? How did that idea just gel? It's just like these great and much better songs. It's like they really are capable of greatness, but yeah, there's some songs I don't ever, will probably never seek out. And I won't name it, but there's one that was one of my favorite of their songs that it just, if you take the words out of it, it's a pretty good song. But
Well,
yeah.
when I was researching and trying to come up and maybe put a song that that you weren't familiar with or whatever, I was listening to a lot of Stones over the last several weeks, and I came across a couple where I'm like, oh my gosh, are you kidding me? You can't say that. I mean, like underage kind of stuff, and it's just like, yeah, some of them like it's
We didn't even use It's Only Rock and Roll, and nothing off that album, and that album is
let's spend the night together. I mean,
yeah, there's just a bunch. But yeah, I think we covered the gamut for sure. And like I said, they do evoke a lot of rawness, and I think that's what appeals to a lot more of the masses and the people who say, "Well, I don't like the Beatles," you know. And I think Mike, he had some kind of conversation on one of them where you mentioned that, and people like, "Yeah, I don't really like the Beatles," or they shoved it down our throats and stuff like that. You know, yeah, I can understand that. But with the Stones, as you said, going full circle, it 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 went back to the common, so to speak, the common guy, the guy who could identify with, yeah, there's drugs out there, there's heartbreak out there. Heartbreak hurts. Heartbreak hurts a lot. I want to kill someone because it hurts so much. Those kind of things. So, no, I really enjoyed it.
Well, there we are, number 39. Next coming up is 40. If we neglected to include one of your favorite Rolling Stones songs, well, maybe we'll do another one sometime. I'm sure though there's many more that will make it on the playlist, just like with the Beatles and Dylan. There was no way we could do, 50 songs a piece maybe and not quite, cover it. But there's a taste. Go check them out. And again, number 40 is coming up, and I'm looking forward to it. I can't believe we've done that many, but here we are. So you guys have anything else you want to add?
Nope.
no, they're a great rock and roll band, and hopefully we're not doing a in memory of or a memoriam of any of these bands, towards the end of the year, because all these guys are in their 80s now, and just like when we heard just with Gene Hackman, just recently, but yeah, I just don't want to wake up tomorrow and go, oh, did you hear Keith Richards passed away, or whatever, because they're just such iconic, rock and roll stars of our day.
Yeah, and Keith has such a reputation for having been through so much, and yet he
We already
seems to
thought he was dead,
thrive.
right? We all thought he was dead a few times, He looked like he was dead a few.
He's looked like that since maybe forever. But I
Oh, yeah.
definitely remember in the set, like I had a subscription to Rolling Stone. Some of those pictures in there is like, oh wow, okay, Mick. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I read his autobiography, and he probably should be dead.
Oh, and what was he? It wasn't, I don't know how many years ago, but he was climbing up a palm tree somewhere, and he like fell and fractured. I don't know, it was his skull or he did something. He messed himself up.
Yeah.
I don't know. The man may outlive us all.
Oh yeah. So, not good times.
Yep, yep. All right. Well, thanks for watching. Check out the playlist and we'll be back soon.